Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to something a little bit different. There's been something rattling around in my head and I can't shake it and I need to think about it, and it's turning from thought experiment to most likely actual real experiment where I'm going to potentially change the way that I play games. And I thought I would share this, guys, with you, sort of my thesis, work in progress. It might still be a little bit messy, but I've got some fundamentals. I've got some of the concrete poured in my mind, and I'm going to put it into a notepad and chuck it up here and see what people think. For a long time, I, like many other people, have had sort of issues with the way that we play games, right? And when I say that, think about what's going on around us. Look at the Steam charts. I might even chuck it up like since 10 years ago. It's something ridiculous. It's like bloody thousands upon thousands of games get released in 1 year now, and then a couple hundred got released 10 years ago. And they're not all just shovelware. There's plenty of shovelware, but I think it's safe to say we're in a glut of what you would probably call good games. And yet why are people miserable? Or why do they play a game for 100 hours non-stop and make themselves angry and they hate that game and the developers of the game fucking hate you and there's no real value there and there's an issue there. There's a value problem. But the thing I've come to realize, it cuts both ways. There's a self-worth component, which I think a lot of gamers don't want to look at. We consume like anything, and it's gone to the extreme degree where it's like comfort food. It's like having a frigging Happy Meal or something. You're just chewing through games. We're in a sales culture where you can pick anything up for bloody $5. You put it on the pile. Maybe you install it and play for 15 minutes, but then you have a look at all the achievements. You know, 90% of player bases don't get through the first friggin' act in most games, right? There's something wrong. There's something really wrong, and we are in a time of plenty. You might not necessarily love the games coming out in current year specifically, but you cannot deny, like, you could live another friggin' 100 years and you're not going to run out of things to play from the backlog that are going to be good. So what's going on? And I think it's very complicated, and I'll attempt to break down what I think about some things, but that's sort of the setup. I think there's something wrong with the way that we look at games, the way that we consume games, and the way that they're marketed to us. They're sort of put upon us by the industry. So this might be all over the place. I'll have to edit heavily. This is not my usual format. You can join the Discord. I've been throwing these ideas at people and seeing who talks back. But there are a couple of sort of tenets that we need to get out of the way. And I know it's a meme that has been around for, I expect $1 per hour or an hour per dollar, that sort of thing, right? However, funnily enough, I think there's a bit of merit to that sort of thinking, albeit not in the traditional sense. But let's backtrack a little bit. I feel like if you look at it as a marketplace of things for sale, the games are being sold to you by the industry. The industry's trying to sell you something. What does the industry think its value is? Is something that's interesting. Because that is, you can kind of quantify that if you really want to put some numbers into the machine and poke and prod it. And I find myself thinking, if I consider myself a turbo gamer, right? a hobbyist gamer that enjoys playing it as your main hobby, right? And you give up things in life. You commit more time to gaming than maybe you should, but at the end of the day, like any hobby, that's kind of almost a sacrifice in and of itself, right? You've decided that that's going to be a chunk of your life that you commit to. And so you should probably take it a bit more seriously. The issue, I think, at its core is a lot of the time, the developers and the industry are not respecting what your time is worth, and you are not respecting what your time is worth. It cuts both ways. Chicken and the egg, who threw the first stone? It's not that important. What's important is you address it from both angles. So what does the industry think you are worth, your time is worth, how much money you're worth? And I start thinking as a general statement, as a foundational sort of logos as to how to think about gaming in current year as someone who is a bit of a turbo sweat that wants to stay on the edge of gaming, who wants to keep up to speed. I think the statement of playing the new, cool AAA game each week is probably a fair statement. And it's going to be different for everyone, right? And I'm not saying you're going to agree, but if you understand what I'm getting at, this is how the industry looks at you. This is how the industry produces its goods, its games. And if you had infinite money, infinite time, right? The utopic ideal mission statement would be, as a consumer, you could probably say that I would like to consume the new AAA game each week. Please, you got to separate a lot of the other shit that you want to, what about me and hypothetical me and, all these little things you want to poke at. I'm not saying that all games are worth it. I'm not saying it's the best year for gaming for current AAA releases, right? I'm saying that this should be a gamer who enjoys gaming. It's their life's hobby. I don't think that's an unreasonable position to hold as the utopic ideal. And so you could probably put a price on that. For roughly, for me, that'd be $90 Australian. Thereabouts, right? I'm a PC gamer. Just about everything is $90. They're trying to push some of the prices up, and you're obviously going to get games cheaper. But I think if you wanted to make a pretty broad position, that's kind of the price that the industry is putting on the enthusiast variety game. I'm not saying it's fair, I'm not saying it's right, but that's what they reckon. That's what they reckon you're worth to them. That's what they reckon your time is worth. And then we speak about time as well. So let's flip the switch. What is your time worth? Now that's interesting. I think there's a couple of layers to it. I want to dig down into one point as well. It's important to differentiate between playing something new. And when I say new, it's new to you. It could be a 10-year-old game, but you've never played it. The new experience as a gamer, as someone exploring a hobby, trying to broaden their bloody taste palette, right? Poke around, feel around in the dark, discover new things and experiences, right? A chunk of your time, and it's going to be up to you what that fraction is, but that should be a chunk of it. But it shouldn't be 100%, right? You don't want to be some glut consumer that just chews up a game, throws it out and goes with it. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're just a fucking tyrannid, just killing and eating everything as you go. And I would like to posit that the whole reason, well, not the whole reason, but a part of why you're consuming these games is because you're chasing the unicorn. You're looking for that experience. You're looking for that game that was made for you. A purpose, if you want to get a little bit artsy-fartsy. So I think it's very important as part of your gamer diet to have a chunk sectioned off where you revisit, where you retread, where you go back and you play that game. You go back and play bloody StarCraft 1 or Mad Max or something important to you, something that you have good memories with, something that helped shape your tastes so that you can keep in touch with who you are, so you don't fall down the toxic media rabbit hole of being told to fucking hate everything and then accidentally having a bad taste in your mouth about every game you touch because it's all turned to fucking ash. It's a control measure. It's to keep base. It's like the bloody things in Inception, the spinning tops and the dice and all that sort of stuff, right? You need your games that you retread, that you revisit, not to live in nostalgia, but to keep touch of what makes you a gamer, what your tastes are, and if they're changing, and to keep pace. Maybe, tragically, the games that you like to replay every couple of years or whatever, you stop wanting to replay because you grow out of them, you change. New genres get invented that appeal to you more. Regardless, I think my pitch stands. I really do think that part of it should be the pursuit of the new, and another part should be the consolidation of the known. To be honest, this is honestly the behavior of a healthy professional or something, right? I come from an engineering field. The idea of staying up to date, it can be a bit suck eggs, but if you want to be a chartered engineer, for example, there's a lot of shit you have to go through. You have to go through logbook hours and all that sort of stuff. You have to go to seminars. You have to stay up to speed, up to date. And yes, we're talking about being a hobbyist gamer, not necessarily a professional. But you can't just sit there as a stick in the mud and be, confused when the world changes around you. If you really want to be part of this industry or part of this hobby, which is one of the fastest growing and most expensive industries we've ever seen, in living memory, I've seen it go from nothing to multi-frigging billion-dollar turnovers, right? It's very exciting to pursue and follow gaming as an observer. But if you want to stay on the edge of it, you need to sharpen your skills, but you also need to keep your fundamentals. Anyway, I hope that helps. A little bit of an aside. Take it from someone who's worked in a professional field. This is what you're supposed to do if you fancy yourself worthy of your credential. And so for me personally, I think it's quite simple. I think it's a 50-50 split. I think 50% of your time should be experimental. It should be pursuing the new. And 50% of your time should be retread. It should be replaying. So talk about time. And this is the other thing. Everyone's going to be different, but you're going to have to punch your own number in here. Like we've talked about, Jesus, I'll get a notepad out. I reckon that the industry looks at me and it expects me. Again, I'm not agreeing or whatever, but I'm just saying this is the pace the industry's moving at. Do you want to keep pace? Do you want to, rebuke it, whatever? But I reckon it thinks I'm worth $90 Australian. Fuck. Can I zoom in on this? Oh, it's control. Look at that. Let's go big, baby. $90 Australian per week. I think that's what the industry sees when it looks at me. So what is the time that I am willing to give to the industry as a hobbyist gamer? And I thought to myself, and I'll throw it out there, and some will scoff, some will think it's rookie numbers, some will go, get a fucking life, get a family, that sort of thing, right? But I look at it and I go, 4 hours. Now remember, I do this as a sort of job as well, but I'm not trying to make it, I'm putting it on the table. For better or for worse, and judgment aside, I'm very passionate about gaming. I love it. And yet I feel like I don't clock games, I don't have fun, and where are all the hours going? I'm trying to get to the root of it. I think it's worth 4 hours per day. So for me personally, I think 4 hours per day is fair, which works out to, what's that? 28 hours a week. You know what? We could round it. We could call it 30 hours per week. That's what I say. That's what I say. The time that I have as a hobbyist gamer that I want to commit to the pursuit of the, bugger it. I'm in for a penny, in for a pound now. I want to treat it like the professional pursuits that I've treated professional undertakings in my life before. I want to give gaming 30 hours per week, and they're 30 fucking serious hours, right? I expect to get my value from those hours. Okay, so now we're bartering. Now we're cooking. Now we're talking, right? So we've got what the industry wants, and then we've got what I'm willing to give. Now remember, I said that I think 50-50 split, we'll call it new old. But we unpacked that. I think you guys understand what I mean. So this is my time. So if we want to say 15 hours per week for new, okay? That's what I have in a week that I am seriously willing to give to the new gaming industry, also the unknown. It doesn't have to be the most brand new game. As I said, it could be a game I missed in the backlog that I never touched from 5 years ago or whatever. That's the number I'm comfortable for me, and it's going to be different for everyone, to say 15 hours per week for the pursuit of the new. So now we have objective parity. Well, objective insofar, these are the numbers I put in the machine and that's what came out. You'll get this different things, right? $1 an hour? No. I think my time as a gamer is worth $6 per hour. Let's refine this. $6 of investment into the pursuit of the hobby ... per hour. $6 of investment into the pursuit of the hobby per hour. That's what I think. I think that's what my time's worth. I know it's sort of little bloody, word salad and playing around it, but that's the truth of it, right? So now we have a number. And we can look at it from a different perspective. I talked about restraint and people's self-worth. I'm not trying to go into a bloody self-help book thing. That's not what I am. I'm just a nerd that likes numbers and likes video games, right? And I'm trying to construct a system that I'm comfortable with that can fix some things. So what if you look at it this way? Look at it as if this is my commodity that I want to sell. It's barter, right? The games industry is trying to buy my time. If you want to look at it from a supply and demand perspective, my time's the demand. They've got the supply. There are more hours of game out there vying for my time than I will ever have hours to sell, in inverted commas, to the industry. And that's how you should look at it. I am selling my time at a rate of $6 per hour, and I am selling 15 hours per week into that. Yeah, I like that. That sounds good. Isn't that a different perspective to look at it from? So what does this mean though? Can I open another one of these and drag it out over here or something? Oh, I bloody well can. So this is how the math comes out. Let's say Cyberpunk, because I'm going to experiment with this myself, with Cyberpunk. I've never completed Cyberpunk. It's in a 2.0 state. I've only played a few hours, poked at it, that sort of thing. I'm keen to give it a go. Not exactly super brand new and unknown, but that'll do. Anyway, the point is, even today, it is going for $90. Let's call it Cyberpunk, right? We'll just do that. And then according to all this math, you can work it out pretty quickly. But the exchange, if I bought that with my kitty allocation, let's say I go, here's my week's worth of money, maybe you get it on special or whatever, but as far as a value exchange, even if you picked up this game for $5, it's still $90 of value. That's what the developers are telling you. That's what the industry is telling you. The game is saying what is within this product is worth $90, or rather, it is worth, here you go, we'll go like this. CD Projekt Red is saying that I will buy 15 hours of your precious time and promise to give you fair value entertainment for that time. The obligation is done. The handshake's done. You've bought into it, for better or for worse. Your exchange has happened. The barter has happened. And so, you play Cyberpunk for no less, and this is the important thing, no more than 15 hours. This is what you do. This is the secret to happiness. I could be wrong because this is thesis. This is theory. And I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to start doing it this way. That's the dollar amount. That's what the industry's telling me. We put the math into the magic machine. That's my agreed handshake, fair, reasonable amount of what I think my time is worth for actual cutting edge, fantastic gameplay, or at least the pursuit of it. So I expect 15 hours. And so that's all that matters as far as I'm concerned. So you play the game for 15 hours. Fail condition, there's less than 15 hours there, right? That's a fail condition. At the end of the day, this is an exchange. This is what my time's worth. If you can't give me that amount for the price that I paid, and when I say price in hours, I gave you these hours as according to the dollar amount, and you gave me back not that, right? That is not a fair exchange. That should be an instant fail. The game should be a different price. A soft fail would be something in the realm of, I don't like it after 10 hours or whatever. However, this is where I would argue, like any good hobby, right? Or pursuit, because that's how I'm treating this. I'm treating it kind of seriously. Now, as I go on, I understand that I think that's what's lacking. Is you're probably unhappy as a gamer because you're not as serious about it as you used to be. Now, I'm not saying you have to fucking, throw your kids in the furnace and abandon all your bloody life obligations or anything like that. But I'm sort of like, this is your free time. You could be spending it fucking teaching your kids to walk or, doing something really important, like drinking down at the bowls club with the boys. But my point is, all jokes aside, this is your free time. It's one of the most important commodities that you have, right? Imagine you have so much money that you don't fucking need, you're good. Does that not make time even more important? My point is, no matter how you look at it, time is the single most valuable commodity that you have, and it's so rare, and every hour gone is an hour in the bin. And so if you choose to play video games, toys for adults, that's fine. Take it seriously. Take control of that time. What I was getting at is, like any hobby, if you want to build a model boat, I've done that before. There are parts of it you don't like doing, like having to sand down the hull for fucking ages, right? Even if you want to paint your Warhammer, cutting them out of the bloody sprues and having to friggin' file down the 10 millionth edge, or paint the bases. Everyone hates painting the bases. That's the shittest part. Base is boring. No one gives a fuck about where your bloke's standing, right? But my point is, any sort of labor of love, any sort of hobby, there is give and take, and there are ups and there are downs. This is probably one of the weakest parts of my sort of thesis here. I would say that if there are 15 hours of gameplay in the game that you paid for, that you sort of have an obligation to yourself as part of the process to put the 15 hours in. So if you're not really feeling it at hour 8 or whatever, there's maybe an argument to punch through and push through and pass judgment. And then perhaps from there you go, well, maybe I fucking hated Cyberpunk in this hypothetical. So, you would then have to take charge and say, well, maybe I don't like this genre. Maybe I don't like shooting games. Maybe I don't like, when I say genre, like I don't like sci-fi cyberpunk. Maybe I don't like CD Projekt Red and I won't play any more of their games. That sort of thing. You should sort of reach that agreed upon thing, if only as a not a high watermark, but as a ground, right? As grounding. Origin point for Cartesian. I just keep throwing things out there, but what I'm really trying to say is, you need to zero yourself. But I don't want to sit on that because I'll agree that that's probably the weakest part. But here's the bit. Here's the bit that people won't do. They'll call me fucking mad. They'll call me a mad scientist for doing this and suggesting this because people want the world. People want it on their terms and they don't want to give because it's such a precious hobby to them. But I honestly think at the end of 15 hours, you put that control down and you pass judgment then. That was the deal. That is what Cyberpunk has sold you under current market trends, right? The market could change. And I would be open, this will be a real hot take, but this is not for today. But if you had games asking for $200, $300, but they actually had $200, $300 worth of value under Scarlett's rule set, then there's a conversation to be had. But we're not there yet, all right? And I'm not necessarily advocating for that in an anti-consumer way. I think people in good faith would understand what I'm alluding to there. Anyway, but what I'm saying is you put that bad boy down. At 15 hours, you put the control down, you uninstall, it goes in the backlog, and you pass judgment there. At fair value, this is the closest thing to an objective rating system as an individual you will ever have, right? In a world where people will watch Skill Up, never ever give a mark and give you a feeling and say that's good, but also they'll fight over whether fucking IGN should give something a 7 or a 7.2 and never a 1. People want an objective center point in all of that. This is how you do it. This is how you do it, and I think honestly you would be better for it. There is restraint in here. I joked about it being like having a restricted calorie diet or fucking abstinence, right? But the point is, a modicum of restraint in the hobby so important to you that you would, if you were like me, you're willing to put like 30 hours a week into it. Why the fuck aren't you showing restraint? It's not just about standards. It's not just about yelling and screaming in your fucking Discord to your 3 mates about how much you hate Starfield's graphics or whatever, right? That doesn't do anything. They don't really fucking care what you think, right? They're being polite. What matters is that you have a system to address that and shape the way that you consume games. Anyway, not to rant too much. So you put this down at 15 hours. You didn't complete the game. Who cares? Who cares? Here's the thing. Assassin's Creed's a great example. I like Assassin's Creed games, but they're getting pretty wild. I think Valhalla was like 70 hours to get through it. Artificially inflated, fucking full of watered down side quests and all. I don't want to necessarily go after the bloody MMOs and, your Asmongold's and all that sort of stuff. Each to their own, I would say. But I feel like us as a culture accepting watered down experiences and asking for more has done fucking more damage than bloody loot boxes will ever do. Hottest take of the video. Riddle me this. If you keep thinking that clocking a game is important and you keep chewing up games that cost 60, 70 hours time of fucking padded, watered down crap, what do you think they're going to do in 2024 or 2025? Why do you think live games as a service are so fucking popular now? It's because you've told them. Of course they're going to string along the shitty fucking 5-second finale cutscene to make you play for 20 hours longer. I know it's corny, but the journey being more important than the destination applies so much in this scenario. And so, at 15 hours in this scenario, you uninstall Cyberpunk and you have this feeling you don't know what to do with. You consumer of all things in 2023. What is this sensation? I really want to play Cyberpunk. I really liked it. I was so sucked in. Oh, I wonder what was going to happen with that side quest. I didn't check out that fucking suburb over there with the bloody Blue Oyster Bar or fucking whatever, right? But the point is, you're sitting there, this warm glow, this fuzziness. You have managed to manufacture an environment in which you have a really fond, longing memory for Cyberpunk. And you put that in your back pocket, you show restraint, because we all should a little bit. You put it in the backlog, then you move on to the next game. At the next value thing. And you know what? 5 hours from now, You're going to be having a gay old time on the next game, right? You're going to be making new memories. You're not going to forget Cyberpunk. You'll never forget Cyberpunk, but it won't hurt so much. Time heals all. And all of a sudden, you will have this memory of this game that you really liked, and you'd fucking love to go back to it. And then you play some more games each week, boom, 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 and then it's 6 months later, and you're like, oh, Cyberpunk, fuck, that was really good. I really enjoyed my time. I can't wait to play it again. I can't wait to have a different experience when I play it again and have more. And that's where we come to the other half, right? The new and the old. So talking about the 50-50 split, and this is something that would take a setup. This would probably take 12 months to set up, right? To build this backlog in this curated fashion. But you would have noticed that the value time restraint only applies to the new game that you purchase. That doesn't extend to your backlog. And that's exactly because maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years go by, and then you come back to Cyberpunk. And then you go, fuck yeah, let's go. And you start again and you have a great time, because that's how you'd go if you were replaying a game. But there's a new angle to it now. You're uncapped on time. You can play as long as you want and you can play through. And maybe you will, but maybe you won't. But it adds value to the replay. Maybe you'll only play it for like 10 hours or something like that and call it a day. But by doing this, you have freed yourself from all the pitfalls of modern gaming. FOMO, being strung along. You're not playing a game to completion because you are trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? You're playing the game potentially to completion or for another third more or something like that. You're going over to the bloody Blue Oyster suburb in Cyberpunk because you really want to. Because you built a relationship with it, and years later, your heart wants to know. It's new and it's fresh. Just imagine living in that spot where you're never overindulging in a game, and at worst, you're just, maybe you don't have a brilliant experience with it, but at best, you're creating this little pocket experience for a few years down the track. And by the time you've moved forward through this for a year or whatever, every week, every second game you're going to be playing is something from your backlog that you really enjoyed, that you really want to revisit, and you would like to put more time into it. You will be so much happier. Or at least that's what I posit. Anyway, this is my fucking TEG talk.